you know that video is actually shorter than the runtime of the movie? I was astonished. I have no desire at all to watch that movie. Have you seen it?
Nope.
That's probably a good thing. I see bits and pieces of it from that. You know, everything wrong with it. Oh my goodness.
I mean, the big thing I'm surprised by about the Emoji Movie is there aren't more memes floating around about it.
It's just because everybody wants to forget. They don't want to keep dredging it up all the time. I think it itself, like the B movie, is a meme, because this time it's like a negative meme. Like, the B movie is a positive meme. This is like, where people enjoy using it. The Emoji Movie is like, they enjoy, if it's ever brought up in conversation, squelching it as fast as possible. It's just one of those movies that's fun to rip into. When the word obs is used in the dialogue by the main characters, I'm out. No more for me, thanks. I'm just barely getting used to the word totes. I don't like it. When certain people use it, it works. Only certain people, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually used that word.
Well, there was a girl named Gracie at Northwestern who was in the choir, and she'd been there for 5 years. She just graduated. I think she must have switched her majors halfway through, but everybody just thought of her as Grandma Gracie, even though she was the same age as I am.
Mm-hmm.
But she's this loud, boisterous personality, a low voice, alto, and she could say things like that, and it would sound perfectly fine. Because she has that resonant, powerful voice, so nobody would question it. She just laughed loudly, crazy facial expression. So she would say, probably as a joke, that's totes fresh. Oh, if it were anybody else. Oh, it burns my soul to see those words. That's carved on the one ring. The things that you should not say. Totes fresh. Never before has any tongue uttered those words here in their mouths. It is altogether evil. But I think obs is even worse.
Yeah.
Even the phrase obviously, I don't know why people using, but obs.
Yep.
Well, that's fine. Linguistic range today.
Speaking of linguistics,
Ooh.
do you know the reason why flammable and inflammable are synonyms?
I'd love to hear this. No.
So, in ye olden days, flammable was not a word. There was just inflammable.
Oh, like, to inflame?
Yeah.
Inflammable. Makes sense.
However, then this little thing called the Industrial Revolution happened.
Oh, yeah, I
And
heard about that.
and factory owners didn't trust their uneducated workers to know that inflammable means means it is able to be inflamed, and was instead interpreted as being not flammable.
Oh. And
So they started using the word flammable instead of inflammable for all of their warning signage. And that's how the word flammable was born.
Oh, believe it. That's how it happened?
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love linguistics. Oh, so that's why. I've always wondered that. Now I know. I know he's half the battle.
Yeah.
That is great.
I mean, I'm not sure what the rest of the battle is for this piece of knowledge.
Well, you ever heard that phrase?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe. On the same sort of linguistic thing, have you ever, this is just sort of a guess, but it seems to hold some water. why people usually think of the fruit in the Garden of Eden, the forbidden fruit, as an apple?
I think that's just the most generic fruit for Western society.
Well, that's true, but there is another reason. In the olden days, a long time ago, when English was still a runic language, the poor little English-speaking people, well, a little after the runes, but they were conquered by the French and suppressed, oppressed, and English just about died out completely. And it was just used by peasants as they worked a little bit, and French, but that's where we got so many French loan fruits. And one of those was the word fruit, which English did not have at the time.
So previously everything was just an apple?
Yeah, the English word for fruit was apple. So every piece of fruit was called an apple. And,
and therefore...
And then it just became relegated to one specific kind of apple, or one specific kind of fruit. Therefore the apple. So it could be that in the old texts, the word apple was written down in the old Bibles, and then when it was come across again...
Well, it wouldn't have been written down, because back in that point of time, the Catholic Church had squashed the idea of translating the Bible into people's languages.
No,
but it still could have, like, it would have been, like, I could see it, like, in general psyche, it was described as an apple, and then when the linguistic shift happened, it just kept being described as an apple, and then artists started depicting it as an apple, and then it was just solidified as being an apple.
Could be. Or you just brought up another point. Maybe it could have been that an artist just chose an apple, and that was the first time that it had ever been painted that way. So everybody just sort of pictured it as an apple.
So let's hear.
Maybe it was a mistranslation, and they said apple instead of fruit out.
Because I'm just trying to think, like, what fruits came from where.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to think. Trees that bear fruit got plums, apples, bananas. I know are New World fruit.
Yeah. Oranges.
Oranges came from Africa.
Okay. What about tangerines?
And those are just small oranges.
Yeah. Dates. That's technically a fruit.
Okay. Got dates.
I don't. No, it's not. That's not that.
Pears, but I'm not.
Peaches.
Yeah. It's like you have a few. Oh, lemon. I guess, yeah, lemon tree. The lemon tree, or is it a lemon vine? I don't know.
I don't know. It seems like it'd be a tree-ish type of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like an orange. They're orange trees.
Yeah, it's a citrus. Yeah, it would have to be a tree. It's citrus.
No, it may not necessarily have been one of the fruits we have now. It could have been it was a unique tree.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, of the fruits that Europeans had available to them, which would they most likely start using to depict a generic, unspecified fruit?
Well, that's true, because at the time there wouldn't have been that kind of intercontinental travel enough to bring lots of different kinds of fruits into our system.
And then, they just happened to pick apple, and then it just stuck.
That is probably the most likely option, but it's not linguistically interesting. Stories can only be true if they're interesting.
Of course. Such as the fact that the color orange is actually named after the fruit.
How is that possible?
There just wasn't a specific word for shades in between yellow and red.
I seem to remember
it was either yellow or it was red.
Or yellow-red.
Yeah. And then at some point, you're like, hey, these oranges things. or it would be more like, hey, you see that? That thing is vaguely orange colored, isn't it? And then orange became a color.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like in Spanish, You have rojo for red. You have amarillo for yellow. Then you have anaranjado for orange. But you have the naranja, which is an orange. Anaranjado. Naranja. The word is right in the middle of it. Gives weight to it.
Yeah. Also, I believe the fruit was named after, like, some noble person who, like, funded the expedition that found them in Africa or something like that.
Simon Orange.
And the noble person's last name was obvious. He was that name because of the place. So, like, Orange of the place is, like, the origination of all of these terms.
Oh, that's funny.
If my linguistic knowledge is correct.
Oh, there's something else like that. It's this long convoluted thing. Let's see. What fruit would be that the color within that fruit? That is incredible.
Man, it's just interesting, like, what languages don't really have some colors.
Really?
Like,
Well, it's like different languages not having some vowel sounds.
like, Latin just doesn't really have... It's not necessarily that they don't have words for blue. I think there are words for blue in Latin, but they're not common. Like, the sea is described as gray, usually.
I can see that.
Um,
What about the sky?
I haven't really seen the sky be described as a particular color, so.
I suppose it does change color.
Yeah, it also, I mean, I guess this isn't something you're very familiar with, but
Still going now.
yeah,
Okay.
in Greek literature, Athena, one of her epithets is gray-eyed Athena.
Gray-eyed?
Gray-eyed.
Oh, gray-eyed Athena.
And so the whole using gray to describe certain more grayish shades of blue holds true also in Greek. It could just be that's a weird translation thing where it's just describing her as having blue eyes, which would be a natural but rare trait in Greece at the time, which would be then make sense why they would have, like, it's rare enough to be like, okay, this new deity, they're gonna have this special trait about them because they need to be ever so special. Original character, do not steal. But yeah, there's that. Not sure where I was going with it, but there's that.
There it is. Learned something like that with the color thing, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, we can probably drop the Phoenix in a bit early since we're not going to be putting anything else in, even though we're going to let it still burn for quite a while.
Yeah, maybe we should move some of the logs aside so we can, get more of a spot to drop it into.
Oh, we'll catch just fine.
Okay, well, let's blow on it a little bit to brighten it up, and we can bring the camera over here. Look at the camera. How long is that cord there?
It's probably don't need to bring the camera.
Oh, okay.
Now we just need a name for the Phoenix.
What did we call the first one?
It was just the Alpha Phoenix.
Ah, okay. Should we call this one Bellerophon?
Yeah, but we've been talking a lot about linguistics. Let's call it the Linguistics Phoenix.
Alright. Linguistics Phoenix.
Because the Linguistics Phoenix has risen.
The words of Hamlet. Words. Tell you about my music and world cultures professor and how he ended his sort of meeting with the church leaders of an indigenous people he was working with.
Yeah.
Well, he had them all together in this big group, all these pastors, and he had just recently mastered the language, or so he thought. And
So he thought,
yeah.
Okay.
So it was getting time for him to get to, have to leave for the airport, and so he went around and, thanked and blessed each of them. He shook their hands and said, I thank you, I thank you, I thank you. And he thanked every single one of them, because he'd been working with them for a long time. And went out for one last walk down the beach that he had been living on for a while. And halfway down the beach, it suddenly struck him that he was using one of the vowel sounds wrong. Or one of the consonants was in the wrong place, or something like that. And he blanched, and he ran back, because he realized that what he had just been saying was he had just gone around the entire circle, shaking every hand and said, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you. He threatened every single one of them. And of course they knew he wasn't being serious, but they were all looking at each other like, oh. So he ran back and apologized, and they all laughed. And I was, oh, it's fine, it's fine. That is how he threatened to kill an entire group of pastors.
Check that off the bucket list.
Yeah. Threaten a room of pastors. And I, of course, told you about my experiences as a Swedish suicide bomber. I must have.
I don't remember you telling me this joke.
I'm not kidding. This was something that happened to me. Did I tell you?
No.
Alright, well, I'll tell you. This was on our tour to the Baltic states and to Sweden.
Okay.
We had just gotten finished with all of our singing in the Baltic states and went over to Sweden and sort of, just explored around there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Took 3 days, and then we were getting on our flight back to America. There are like 4 different layers of security that you have to pass through before getting on a plane. So there was obviously the bag scanner and all that. Got through that fine. Went to the first checkpoint, looked at my passport, fine. Second checkpoint, fine. And then once you're finally into the international area, then there's like one more gate that you go through to get to the airplane. And there was they were doing like a random check of like every fifth person or something like that. And I was one of those people. So they took me and said, hey, we're just going to check in. And I thought, oh, that's funny. I wonder what I've done wrong. And so they took me to this little, black curtained area where they set my bag up on a table and had a little testing machine there. And they said, no problem, this will just take a few minutes. They took a little swab or something, testing swab, and swiped it over my bag and inside the lip and, across my clothes and shoes and everything. And they stuck it in the machine to read it. So we just stood there for a couple seconds waiting. And I expected the green light, fine, I'll be on the way. And then the screen lit up red. Great big red X on it with the words, explosives detected. I think my eyes shot out of their sockets when I saw that. I'm going on an international flight. I'm gonna... If something goes wrong, my entire choir is stranded in Sweden. I thought, how in the heck? And so, I was trying to explain to this lady that I'm not a terrorist. And she was sort of like, and so the captain came in and said, I said, said, we're going to run a second check. It's probably nothing, but if not, and he sort of smiled at me and so gave this creepy smile. I thought, oh gosh, what in the world? And so they did the whole test again, nothing happened. But for a few heart-stopping moments, TNT is what came up on the screen. So there's like this whole long list of explosives, and TNT was the one that was listed. I've never stared at anything so hard in my life. Apparently what had happened was that I had been walking through like a demolition site in one of the old cities in Latvia. And I had been handling some of the materials, like bits of broken brick and things. And I guess the dust must have gotten on my shoes or something. I don't know what happened, but whatever it was enough to register TNT in this machine. So that is how I almost became a Swedish terrorist.
Okay. This is reminding me of a story I read quite a while ago. This military person, one of his big jobs was disposal of explosives.
Woo.
And
Nerve-wracking job.
after he retired, one of the backpacks that he used for
Training?
for like moving some of these explosives around,
Yeah.
he ended up taking with him on a flight.
Oh.
Well, he it was when he was on leave and he was like coming back to the US, he would take the backpack with him on a flight, and pretty much every time he did this, there would be a whole kerfluffle because it would read as being covered in explosives, because it was. And then one time, it doesn't. And you need to get your supervisor here now, because your machine is broken. And then he makes a huge kerfluffle to get the security person, the chief of security at the airport, to acknowledge that this machine is broken because it should be reading explosives.
He had to go through a long explanation of why he knew that.
Yes.
So this was a friend of yours?
No. It's like a story that I read
Oh, okay.
online.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I wish I could have been there for that confrontation. Excuse me, sir.
Your machine is broken.
Yes, I'm carrying explosives, like large amounts of heavy-duty explosives.
Well, it wasn't like he was actively carrying them.
He had
but, like,
carried them.
He had carried them in this backpack and so extensively that it was always going to show up as having trace amounts of explosives.
I wonder what his first thought was when it didn't register. Just the implications. All the people that could have gone on this airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Now to just send him through all the airports in the world, and that's his job. Just the guy who does covert detections, or
I mean, I'm pretty sure they do have people like that.
Probably so, yeah. But he could be like a secret monitor.
So secret, even the secret monitors don't know about it.
Yes. Mr. X. Explosives.
Just have so many layers of cover.
Oh yeah. And let's not even talk about his secret identity.
No, of course not. Because obviously a secret identity is a secret identity that also has a secret identity.
Yeah. Who has a day job to cover?
Because he follows the military rule of 1 is none, 2 is 1,
Yep.
3 is 2. Which basically, if something is important, you can't have just one of it.
Right.
You have to have a backup in case something goes wrong with it. But the military doesn't consider that good enough either, because in the military everything needs to be over-engineered.
Right.
So
Kind of important.
you need to have 3, so that when one of them is down for maintenance, you still have a backup in case something goes wrong.
5 is right out.
So yeah, he clearly has 3 secret identities
Oh, yeah.
following that rule.
But he can't tell anybody about him because if he tells somebody, no secret.
Yeah. This
Yeah,
is
this is a time version of that my fire conductor uses, where on time is late, early is on time, and if you're late, well, we don't even talk about that.
Yep.
You're gone. And I must have told you what he does to leave you. Haven't I?
No.
The immense chorus.
No.
All right. Is there a mute button on that thing? Bye. And so that's how, if you ever want to get ahead in life, definitely you got to follow those steps, or otherwise you're in big
No
trouble.
hope for you.
No. So don't forget that, okay? These are important words. This is a good time right now. You're missing out if you didn't hear that last part. Slice of life. But anyway, that's why you're never late in that class ever again.
Yep. Definitely.
Our engineering professor is also a fountain of stories like that because he was in the army.
Oh.
He was in the army, and I think the Coast Guard at one point, and the Navy.
Yeah, you do not mess with those sorts of people.
Yeah. He was in camouflage training at one point, and they thought they decided to put that to the test. So one night, you're not allowed appliances in your dorms, but they really wanted some popcorn. I don't know why. They wanted some popcorn, so they were determined to get a popper.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided, hey, we're in camo. let's disguise ourselves and sneak out of the base and go, do like this black market deal to get this popcorn popper, because one of the guys in his bunker, or whatever it was, had some connections with this guy who had a popcorn popper. He was willing to sell it. And so they snuck out of base in the middle of the night to get this popper, and they paid for it and everything. And they're in the bar, and they thought, hey, as long as we're here, let's buy some beer and take it back with us. And of course, alcohol is not allowed on base. So they managed to get back, I don't know how, and not be seen. They got it all back into their little room, and they were, having a good time. They were popping popcorn, drinking, and and just then somebody burst through the door. So one of the other plebes or whoever it was, just lowly ranking people, and he said, "Guys, the commander smelled the popcorn. He's coming." And so they had this little window with a windowsill. So they opened that. They put all the beers on outside on the windowsill, shut the window, took all the popcorn, stuffed it in a drawer under a bunch of the uniforms and things, and jumped into bed and pretended they were asleep. The commander opened the door, and they heard him say, they heard his phone ring, so they heard him answer it, and they heard him say, "Yes, sir." And they realized this is the commander. There's only one person on the entire base that he would say "yes, sir" to in that way, and they realized that their particular dorm room, that window, faces the building of the commanding officer of the entire base.
Oh.
The general. And he just happened to be having a party on his four-season porch that night. And they looked and they saw all of these cadets just fling open the window and stuff all this beer out of the And so then they hear the commander go, "Yes, sir." "Ah, yes, I see it now, sir." Looking at the window. And I think that he didn't get over that punishment until the president actually came and pardoned all of the punishments that happened to be going on that particular camp. Because he did that periodically. I think it was Clinton at that point. Tradition. The president comes and pardons everybody every once in a while. But he was marching back and forth in the cement, training room in full gear for hours and hours and hours. I think he had over 100 hours that he had to fulfill doing that. And in the meantime, missing everything he was supposed to be going to and paying for it. It is brutal. When he was even younger than that, somebody stuffed a bag over his head in the middle of the night, led him out to the middle of the grounds in January, tied him to the flagpole, smeared his entire body with peanut butter, covered him in feathers, and then left him there all night. And it was cold.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. So, he just sort of ate the peanut butter around his mouth to stay alive. In the morning, they found him. Oh, he has had.
Then he got yelled at by the drill sergeant for not being presentable.
Not nearly. He was in his boxes with peanut butter all over his box. But he did single-handedly. I think he won a commendation for single-handedly winning a battle. It was a training battle, but it was still a battle. He won it all by himself by getting lost in the desert.
What?
He got lost and they won. How it happened was they were pretending to be the Russians. They had all of the gear and everything, and they had they were stationed permanently in this desert, which he hated, and they would constantly have other battalions from different locations throughout the United States to come and take them on, to test their skills. And so they were doing the formations and everything in this sort of tight valley in the desert. And I think, what was his rank at that point? Anyway, he was in a tank. He wasn't the guy with on the cannon. He was the guy. Maybe he was in a jeep. Yeah, he was up sort of scouting around.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think he was a sergeant at that point. And so they decided, hey, we have a map, we have a layout of the battlefield. Let's sneak around these sort of hillish mountain type things over here. Come at them from the side, and we'll just roll them up, and we'll take them out. And meanwhile, everybody else was moving up like this. I actually drew a diagram on the board in the middle of heat transfer to show us this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did their thing. They went up along the mountains. And after a while, Sergeant Hire realized that he really should be hearing some sounds of the battle from here. None of these rock formations looked familiar. And that's when he realized that he must have gone the wrong way and didn't know where he was. And so the gunner from down in the tank says, "Sergeant Hire, are we lost?" "No! Pass me the map." And so he got up the map, was trying to figure out where they were. And meanwhile, the walkie-talkie is squealing, going, "Where are you? We're getting pummeled. Get back over here. Where are you?" And poor Hunter Hire was out lost in the desert, wondering what in the world he was supposed to do. And so, eventually, apparently, military procedure is if you don't know where you are, just march toward the sounds of the guns. And so, he turned around, and when eventually he found himself again, he realized where he was. He was actually facing the rear of the enemy, who was advancing on his battalion, and they had never expected somebody to come from behind. So he thought, well, hey, and so they pulled up behind him. He gets out like this mortar launcher and started blasting them from behind,
dummy
like
rounds.
Fake, dummy rounds. The tank is firing, and the entire army turns around and goes, "What?" And so they just got decimated at that point because they were not ready. And he wiped out the entire front with this one tank and a mortar launcher, and they won. And then he was feeling pretty good about himself, and he got like a commendation and everything, won a medal. And then they went into the debriefing room, and that's when he realized that everybody had transponder tags on, so they could see exactly where he went and what he'd been doing, and the motions of all of the. And so, when they showed him just sort of going in squiggles around the battlefield off to the right somewhere, and whoever was debriefing was saying, and here we see, Sergeant Hire performing a classic maneuver. Around commendation for original thinking or whatever. And so that's how he won a battle, by getting lost. Oh, yeah.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah, me too. He could be like the next Indiana Jones. Like, there's the adventure of the macaroni salad wrestling tournament. There's the adventure of the parachuting hamster. There's the adventure of...
Wait, just a moment. Let me reset the camera.
Oh.
Parachuting hamster, you say?
Yes, the adventure of the parachuting hamster, the macaroni salad brawl. There was the
No. I am asking for details of the parachuting hamster.
Well, that was when he was a paratrooper.
Okay.
So they were in airborne training, and they were on the third or fourth floor of their barracks.
Okay.
And all of them decided they really wanted a pet, but of course you can't have a pet because of the Army.
Mm-hmm.
And but they were determined to get one. And they thought, well, it can't be anything big because we'll be found out. So they decided to get a hamster. And they had a little bowl for him, and they like hid him in a drawer when anybody came in. And then they thought, well, it can't just be a regular hamster. That would be stupid. It's got to be an airborne hamster. We're paratroopers. We're engineers. We're like, we have degrees. Let's make him a parachute. And so they did. They designed him a little harness, made him a parachute, strings and everything. They cut a ping pong ball in half, a little neck strap, made him a helmet. They shaved a little A on his chest for airborne. And then I thought, well, let's try it. So they opened the window and threw him out. And it worked, and he floated gently to the ground. This poor traumatized hamster. They sent somebody down to get him, and they brought him back up. And they fed him a treat for his courage. And then they kept modifying the parachute to make it more stable, and we're doing like trial runs. And eventually word started to get around, in secret to some of the other people in the barracks. And so you did have people coming by, and they did head and night, look at the window and say, "Hey, throw out the hamster." And so they'd open the window and out he'd come. He'd float gently down into their arms. This poor hamster. And so they would feed him treats every time so that he wouldn't just panic. Well, one day, this is how it began. I said, well, one day, it was so hot. It was just the worst summer day you could possibly imagine, and there was no air conditioning. Everybody was just languishing in this tight little room, half asleep on their bunks. And one of these guys thought, oh, this poor hamster, we just got to give him some air. And so they let him out of his bowl for a while, just sort of let him roam around the floor. And, just to, so he could cool off. Well, this hamster had gotten used, at this point, to getting food whenever he went out the window.
So clearly he decided he wanted food, so he went out the
He
window.
was hungry. So he climbed up there all by himself, no parachute, and he jumped. They had a little funeral for him. They made him a little tiny headstone and, buried him in the cemetery, saluted and everything, and put his name on it. And it's one of the artists, one of the guys who was an artist in civilian life actually painted a picture of this little hamster with his helmet on. Dr. Heyer still has it. And that's the adventure of the airborne hamster.
Yeah.
Then there was a time he was stationed on a battleship for so long that he can't stand to look at lobster anymore because that's all he had to eat. And there were shenanigans that happened during that time. It's like this endless round of weird stories. The biggest one he always saves for thermodynamics is the Higher on Fire story. And that was when that involved copious amounts of Bunsen burners and macaroni salad. Have I told you this one?
Nope.
Okay. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Alright. So at this point, I think he was a cadet. But there were people even lower than him. They called them plebes. And those are like the first people to come into Army training. And they love to just mess them up, do stuff. Like, they had a game called Bowling for Plebes, which he didn't describe to us because it was too painful. And, at one point, they saw the Olympics on. They were enjoying the Olympics, and they thought, we should do our own Olympics right here with the plebes, and then we'll have them compete. And so they decided to do wrestling because they're Army. Mm-hmm. And so they thought, well, what can we use as like a wrestling, area? We have nothing comparable to that. Well, they realized that the showers in that building were just this, it was this huge room full of shower heads, and so it was the widest place in their building. The problem was the floor was tile, and if you tried to wrestle on that, you could probably kill someone. So they thought, well, what can we put in there to cushion it? Well, they had just gotten in this huge load of dried, dehydrated macaroni salad in the kitchen that everybody evidently didn't like. So they just snuck in and took bags of this stuff, bags and bags of macaroni salad, and dumped it on the floor of the shower until it was like that thick. And they turned the water on, and rehydrated it to the point where, there's a little lid into the shower area, so they fill it up to that line, so that there'd be some cushioning. And then they set up all these Bunsen burners in the hallways and had this big ceremony of everybody walking down the aisles. Dr. Heyer and his other cadets had set up little tier lists and, matchups. And so it began in this big tournament. People like chucking each other onto the floor in this shower and making huge waves in the macaroni salad, big wrestling match. And the problem was, every time that they would slam into the ground like that, it would slosh a little bit. And go just a little over the edge, not much, but just a little. And the problem was, smashing each other into the ground like this, it was breaking up the macaroni salad, so they had to pour more in. To compensate and make it squishier. And so the more they wrestled, the more it sloshed over it. And eventually, I don't remember who, but one of the other cadets came running down the hall and said, guys, there's a waterfall of macaroni salad going down the steps, and the lieutenant knows. And he's coming. And they all thought, what are we going to do? And so Dr. Heyer actually ran to his room, and everybody else stood in formation. And the lieutenant came. And here stand all these plebes covered with macaroni salad. He just looks up and down and he said, who did this? Who was responsible for all this? And everybody just clammed up. Because they knew, if nobody says anything, we'll get away with this. And I don't know how, but somebody apparently leaked Dr. Heyer's name, Cadet Heyer. And so in came the lieutenant into the cadet hire's room, and he's not there. And he flings open the closet, and there he is. Standing there just sort of waving sheepishly at him. That was when he got the 100 hours of marching back and forth until the president pardoned him. And so ended the adventure of Hire on Fire. He's had an interesting life. And there was a time that the CIA converged on his son.
Oh.
In the middle of St. Paul. They had a sniper trained on him. There are
Go on.
Okay. It was winter, and his son, this was a long time ago, his son was maybe 11. I think he's in college now. And his son and Dr. Hire just been building a snowman, and they had it finished and everything. And then I think that his son had gotten like a BB gun for his birthday or something, or maybe it was for Christmas. And he was out like firing at the snowman and messing around with it. And some really, really, really overreacting neighbor had called the police and said that there was some maniac waving a gun around in the middle of St. Paul, or something like that. Now, that was just speculation on Dr. Hire's part, because all he knows is that his poor son, is standing out there just messing around, having fun, and this van came squealing around the corner and stopped right there, and a whole bunch of SWAT guys get out. The guns trained on him, shouting to drop the gun. And there's just police pouring in from all directions. And so Dr. Hire, came out and, trying to figure out what was going on. So finally, his poor traumatized son is, obviously drops the gun and he was like cuffed and everything. And finally they got cleared up the misunderstanding, and he thinks that he heard one of the men in the formation saying, stand down the sniper, or, call off the sniper, or something like that. There was somebody on the roof waiting, just in case it was necessary. So that is the story of the
tax
SWAT
dollars
team.
at work.
Yeah. Saving our homesteads from BB guns and maniacs with phones. And so that is the adventure of the SWAT team and the sniper. I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about Dr. Hire the entire time.
Oh, it's quite interesting.
And there's Dr. Sinat, hunting extraordinaire. You can bet in one of his lectures he will mention deer hunting at some point. It's inevitable.
Okay.
And, he's hilarious. Words, you can't put into words. Like, I used to sit in the front row. Used to, for a very good reason. I don't. But he was my biology professor. I had him for 1 year, and man, first of all, he's brilliant. Second of all, he's insane.
This is a good combination.
Yes, it is. Like, just the way he teaches is hilarious. But yeah, he stomped up the aisle at one point when we were talking about genetics and reproduction. Slammed his hands down on the armrest of my seat, looked right at me and said, "You, which side are you ovulating on this month?" What do you say to that? I didn't answer. They spun around and asked the girl what her... We won't go into that, but he said you'll feel a little twinge on one side, one side or the other. He just messes with people like this. Like, apparently there's a story circulating about him, sneaking up on somebody who was asleep in his class during their talk on genetics and shouting at him, "Quick! Are you XX or XY?" And the guy, flustered, said XX. And so he told the entire class that this man was sterile, stay away from him. He's actually a lot of fun. He's a kind guy, but he just does these crazy pranks and things. And, I once told about this deer that took him 12 shots to kill. I don't know why I did that, poor thing, but yeah, the story that was been building up to with all this is that he loves to hunt. And at one point, he was, let's see, how did all this happen? I think that he was on one side of a giant clearing and his partner was on the other. Yeah, I think that's how it went. And he had been sitting there for hours swatting mosquitoes, and finally he saw one deer, one good buck, and he was taking aim at it. And then he heard a snap of a twig behind him, and he spun around ready to fire, and it was his partner, who had come from the other side of the clearing because he couldn't get anything. And meanwhile, the buck ran away. And so I think he said something to his partner, like, hold still or something like that. With his gun up. I think he had the safety on, but he doesn't take kindly to losing a deer. He was called in to testify at a, how in the world he described this? It was happening in Kansas once. They're sort of having this sort of evolution on trial kind of thing.
Okay.
Where the evolutionists were bringing in a bunch of creationists and sort of trying to figure out from them why they wouldn't believe in evolution. And all of them, very heavy bias towards evolution. And, like, just, I don't know how it all worked out, but he was called in because he's done very, very in-depth research on it, and does not has many good reasons why he thinks that it's not true. Mm-hmm. Interesting things to think about. He taught it in his class, but the point is that he was called down there, and he likes to go and troll the forums of various just sort of secular science sites. And at one point he saw a comment that said, "Hey, Bruce and Matt is coming down. Should we try to prepare for this guy?" He said, "Oh, no, he's a biochemist. He's not going to know anything." And he said it was the best laugh he had in a long time. So he went down there, and there's a transcript online of his entire meeting there. And it wasn't so much what he said that was interesting, it was how he said it. So, like, they would ask him these complicated questions, and his only response would be, "That was a long question." And have him rephrase it so it was shorter. And he'd just constantly say all these very trolly responses to every single question that was presented to him. And I think the guy who followed him, his name was Giuseppe something or other. I'd never seen this happen in a court transcript or whatever it was, but like it said that this guy takes a stand, and then there's like this editor's note that says, during this time the testimony of Giuseppe whatever was given. However, his entire presentation was so heavily accented in Italian that we were not able to reproduce what he said or something like that. So it just goes on to the next person. That was the best part of that entire transcript. Do you have any crazy college stories, professor type thing?
I don't really have any stories about my professors. They have a tendency to be a bit more tame than that.
That's good.
There's the one professor I had for my intro physics courses, who she plays roller derby.
Roller derby, really?
Yeah.
Holy cow! Dangerous sport.
Yeah. Every once in a while, especially when, particularly like for classes, for like when she's introducing collisions, she'll just come in with her rollerblades on.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's fun.
So yeah, she's pretty interesting.
We've had some fun stories from roller derby.
Yeah. I told you the story of the drunken brawl I got involved in.
Is it the one where you just sort of fell asleep?
No?
Oh, no, you
fall asleep.
fell asleep eventually.
Well, yes. It every story that I don't die in eventually.
Oh,
leads to
yeah.
me.
You did tell me about the drunken brawl, but I forget all the details.
So, it's after all the finals are done, senior this past school year. So, basically, the only people left are seniors and the RLM for Gaming House.
Right.
And we decided to all have a party. I decided to drink a decent amount to see what drunk beer is like.
In hindsight, that probably wasn't the best idea.
That was a great idea. Nothing went wrong.
But with getting drunk, you never know. Losing control like that is often dangerous.
There were enough individuals who were reasonably competent at the art of violence there that I trusted that also who were much more used to being drunk, that they would probably be less inhibited by it than me, and therefore if I got out of line, could handle me.
Yeah. Well, I admire your determination not to do it again.
But yeah, so there's one of the other seniors had been saying that he wanted to do some LARP fighting against me at some point, and just hadn't actually gotten around to making good on that. And he was drunk enough that he was like, okay, we're doing it now. I'm like, okay, I'll go get the swords. And then these two other people who had also been saying that they should have a LARPing fight between the two of them, because one of them had been in LARPing but hadn't done it in a while because she was super busy, and had also done fencing for a whole lot of time, and the other had done a little bit of fencing. So then, because I was getting the swords, they decided they'd join in on this too. And then we just spent like the next half hour outside switching off who was fighting whom, and it was great. And then at some point I briefly ducked out of the violence to go upstairs and get Boom. Well, not Boom, Kaboom. And pull Kaboom out so that I could use Kaboom. And in hindsight, this was not a good tactical decision, but that's not the point. Because I was like just sober enough that I could do like normal fighting. I was not sober enough to be swinging around a mace almost as tall as me without falling over. So I did a fair amount of hitting people and then immediately falling over and then scrambling.
You weren't lost in the battle.
Nope.
You survived. They will never forget the day that you were provoked to use Kaboom. They still have the scars. I took a computer science course once, a long time ago. I found out I wasn't really good at it, but I imagine you're going to be great at it.
Thank you.
With all the computer stuff you've already done. But this professor of mine had the most generic name I've ever heard. His name was James Smith. About as generic as you can get. But he was an electronic spy in World War II. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Decoded things. Which reminds me, have you ever heard of a guy named Garbo?
No.
He's incredible. I just found out about him recently. He was a spy back in World War II. Like a real on-the-line kind of spy. Like a double agent.
Okay.
This guy is like the Determinator. It was incredible. He started out, I think he was Italian. Garbo was like a code name. Who really wanted to help out in the war effort, just for moral reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pretty good at being sneaky and doing a lot of complicated things. And so he and his wife together decided, yeah, let's do this. And so they went to the Allies and said, can you use us? And they turned him away. And so he decided, I think he had said a couple times, he went to London and tried to become an agent. but they turned him away, and so he decided, well, fine. If they're not going to use me, I'm just going to do it myself. So Garbo, or the man who later came to be known as Garbo, went to the Axis powers, and said, "Can I be a spy for you?" Not actually intending to be a spy for them, but like faking it, and entered into their service and became a German spy. And then he went back home to where he lived and made a network of fake spies, of like all of these people that he was using to gather information. And he would gather fake information from things like bus schedules and things that were actually supposed to be coming from London, and he would feed it back to the Germans, who never suspected a thing. So he would steer them wrong a couple times. He'd give them just enough real information that he wouldn't harm the Allies, but he also would still seem to be helping. And then all of he had 25 agents that didn't exist. They were just names in a book. And some people were related to this person, and this person needed to be supported by this. That's where he was getting all his information. And then, if anything ever went wrong, he could just have one of them executed or punished or something. And of course, because they didn't exist, it didn't matter. So at some point, the Allies caught on to this, and they heard about him, and they said, "Okay, fine, we'll accept you. You can become a double agent." And they gave him the codename Garbo. And the things that he did, he actually bled the German, I think he bled the equivalent of $100,000 off of the Germans' funding, just to keep afloat all of these fake agents. Yeah, because he got to be such a trusted guy. And he was actually heavily involved in the Battle of Normandy. It would have been so much worse. What he did was he convinced the Germans, and by collaborating with the Allies, to do this crazy thing where they drove fake cars around the city of London, broadcasting fake radio signals. They had inflatable tanks so that from the air they would look real. And they had planes flying around London that weren't actually military planes to make it look like they were amassing an army. And they even spread the rumor that I think MacArthur, was it Truman or MacArthur, or whoever it was that was like the big head honcho war guy from America at the time, that was there and ready to lead the forces. And they were terrified of him, the Germans were. So Garbo convinced them that the Allies were going to attack someplace way north of Normandy and someplace way south, and that the attack at Normandy was a diversion, that the real attack was still coming. And so he diverted tons and tons of the army of Germany to these places. And of course, we won D-Day at heavy losses, but we broke through. And those troops were still waiting. Some of them were still there, waiting for the next, strike to happen. So eventually, now because of his efforts in the war, he is the only person to have ever received an Iron Cross from Germany and a commendation from Britain. Like the highest commendations of both sides. Like he's a member of the Empire, or, royal member of the Empire, whatever the award is for Britain, and he's got an Iron Cross from the Nazis. So then he quietly faked his death and moved to Venezuela and started a new life, so that nobody would ever find him. And then some reporter found out about the story and sought him out and found him, and that's why we know.
Fun. One of my friends from college told me a story about one of her ancestors.
Oh?
He was living in the South around the time of the Civil War.
Okay.
I believe he was a blacksmith.
Oh, okay.
And some point during the war, a couple of some of the Confederate soldiers are coming around, more or less drafting men into service, and the two soldiers went in to greet him. Well, went to greet him, and he greets them cordially, invites them in. They're just never seen him again.
Seriously?
He didn't want to go to war.
He killed them both?
That's the implication.
Holy cow. Well, how do we know about this?
I mean, there's a good chance a tale like this is probably apocryphal, but
You never know.
you never know.
Holy cow. Well, he's a blacksmith. He certainly had the tools.
Yeah.
Man, grizzly
The real
bear.
question is, how do you hide those bodies?
Ugh. That's awful. Probably not the kind of thing you want to think of your ancestors as, but that's a crazy story.
I mean, it's basically that or get drafted into the Confederate Army, so.
Yeah. One of America's most horrible wars. Oh. You hear the story of that guy? I think he was in the South too, but he was in the West. He spent his entire life digging a tunnel through a mountain. By himself, with no power tools.
I've heard of someone working on doing that in the modern day, somewhere in a third world country, but I hadn't heard of
Yeah.
someone in the American South doing something like that.
Oh yeah. Spent years, decades doing this. Every day. That was what he started doing this because there was no road to the place that he was trying to get to. So instead of finding a better way, which would not have taken him, 30-some years, he decided he would dig through the mountain. Then he finished the tunnel, sold the plot of land, and moved away. I don't get it. That was like his whole life. You can go through it even today.
To be fair, that plot of land is probably worth significantly more for having the tunnel.
Probably so.
Also, because it's just such a bonkers thing to do, it is now a famous site.
Right.
So,
But man, oh man. Tunnel standing even today. Well, it's about gone now.
yeah, still some good, a couple of good tolls, but yeah, probably time to just go ahead and douse it, pack it in. Especially since I shouldn't be up terribly much later than this.
I got something going on tomorrow?
Yeah, student management class at 8 tomorrow.
Student management class?
Yeah.
Oh,
St.
hello.
Paul Public Schools wants the bus drivers to take the
Oh.
class so they know how to get kids to behave.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Pretty good. Just finished. Just about to blast into smithereens.
So, late one night in the depths of Paizo County, Thirsty and John Compton hatched the idea for a scenario referred to as the grinders.
Okay.
We were told you get to bring multiple characters to this scenario because, wait for it.
The grinder. Okay.
They are leaving open the possibility that they may even open it to level 20s.
I'm very interested to see what they come up with.
This is apparently part of how they're going to kind of set the stage for PFS and second edition to kind of narratively clear some of this lane, so to speak.
By giving you this one big dungeon for everybody to kill off all the characters in.
Yes.
That's a way of doing it. I think I approve of this way of doing it.
I anticipated you would.
Just grinding. What does level 20 mean?
That's the max level for Pathfinder.
Cool. Yeah, by that time you probably get pretty attached to all your characters.
Yeah, but at level 20 for Pathfinder Society, that's when you retire. So.
Oh. Or die.
So yeah, this would basically be a scenario if it's working ends up working as it's currently advertised. That means it's a scenario where you can give one last hurrah for your characters that you're otherwise not going to be able to play again.
Except for that poor shot who goes first.
Well, that's what your level 15 that you're not quite as attached to is for.
Oh. How long does it take to get to that level?
Very.
Like, relatively. Like, time-wise.
So Pathfinder Society, you level up every 3 sessions, basically.
Alright.
Assuming normal length sessions. There are some scenarios that give you more XP.
And how often are those sessions?
I mean, if you have nothing else on your schedule, you can, in St. Paul, you can have almost a session every day.
Oh, wow.
Because there are that many different PFS stuff going on in the Twin Cities. But
That could eat your life pretty fast.
like I said, if you have nothing else going on, such as the one person who has retired and just plays Pathfinder Society all day as the thing to do because he's retired.
Well, some sparks on that side. I might want to shoot it from the other side over there.
But yeah, so given the 3 sessions to level up, you get 20th level, that's 60 sessions worth of playtime.
Wow.
Most of those sessions being like 5 hours long.
I gotta hope we have a good end.
I think that's good.
It'd be disappointing to just get caught in some random rock slide or something. So what do you do then? Just stop coming to a certain group?
No, like so the way Pathfinder Society works is it's like set up among so that like you can bring your character to any of these events.
Oh, I see.
And keep playing them. Because it's all a shared world sort of thing.
Oh, I see. There are dungeons you go through?
Yep. So yeah.
Sounds like fun. A friend of mine from Culver's does something like that where he and his team, went underground to stop the return of some horrible king, and ended up actually causing his return and destroyed an entire town. The city of the dead rose up from beneath it and floated away.
Whoops.
Yeah, that's how the story ended that day. So he was a bit disappointed. Then in a car building game that night, before I knew anything about this, I was just learning this game, and you could destroy a town to create a dead city, and that's what I did. That's what they told me.
Big whoops times 2.
Yep. So I kind of got in trouble for destroying a city to make a dead city. creepy jobs.
For zombies and whatnot.
Right, yeah. Niche market.
Yep.
Well, 3 viewers. I think we've about run the gamut of possible topics of conversation tonight. We've covered linguistics, theology, history, academics.
Military folks being absolute nut jobs. Really, what more could you want?
Video games, role-playing games, board games, combustion.
We will see you again, hopefully like next week or something,
Maybe
with
next time
even
there'll
more
be 4
fire.
of you.
Maybe, but
so.
probably not.
Probably just 3.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.